Anti-gun activists are losing, but how can we tell? They've resorted to using political pressure to remove data and information that doesn't support their views. Hey guys, I'm Tiffany and you're watching One in the Chamber, the show that helps you become a better pro-gun activist. It's abundantly clear that the anti-gun crowd will use underhanded measures to push their agenda. Whether that means subverting the will of Congress and getting ATF to carry out their gun control wish list, or using billionaire-funded blank checks to fight the overturning of gun control nationwide. Today, we're going to talk about one of the more sinister strategies of the anti-gun movement. That is scrubbing any data that supports a pro-gun narrative from all official websites, namely the CDC and FBI. This is one of the things that infuriates me the most about anti-gun groups. In 2013, Obama issued an executive action directing the CDC to research gun violence. The same year, in a study ordered by the CDC and conducted by the National Academies Institute of Medicine and National Research Council, what a mouthful, they found that defensive use of guns by crime victims is a common occurrence. The CDC study estimated that defensive gun use was at least as common as offensive uses by criminals, with estimates of annual uses ranging from about 500,000 to more than 3 million yearly. Considering that the data used in this study was from 2008, it would be interesting to see an update with these numbers, since many more people have access to a carry permit, and Americans of all different backgrounds have embraced the Second Amendment. But that's unlikely to happen, as these numbers were removed from the CDC's website at the behest of gun control groups. This removal was the result of an apparent lobbying campaign from the Gun Violence Archive, Newtown Action Alliance, and GVpedia in 2021. After months of emails complaining about the statistics being used to counter gun control legislation, they had a Zoom call with some folks at the CDC, and poof, the stats magically disappeared. And according to the Reload, the Gun Violence Archive have gained notoriety for its redefinition of the term mass shooting. It includes any shooting that has 4 or more injured victims, instead of 4 or more deaths. This deliberate change in methodology results in a nearly tenfold increase in shootings identified as mass shootings. And of course, at the same time, they started using a very conservative policy to downplay recording of legal defensive gun uses. I'm sure you hear it all the time. A mass shooting at a mall or on the streets, but where are these numbers really coming from? The underhanded nature of this change didn't go unnoticed either. In December of 2022, 5 senators, Chuck Grassley, Tom Cotton, Marsha Blackburn, Joni Ernst, and Bill Cassidy, wrote a letter to the CDC director demanding details about the meeting between the anti-gun groups and the CDC. If you needed more evidence that the CDC was looking to influence Americans on firearms, just listen to this quote from Mark Rosenberg, who at the time was a CDC employee conducting research on gun violence. "We need to revolutionize the way we look at guns, like what we did with cigarettes. It used to be that smoking was a glamour symbol, cool, sexy, macho. Now it is dirty, deadly, and banned." How interesting is it that the CDC eventually made good on Rosenberg's desire to indoctrinate people on guns? And the CDC isn't the only government entity working to mislead the public on firearms. Recently, John Lott Jr. published an article explaining that the FBI had been misleading Americans on active shooting reports. In the 2023 piece, Lott writes that the FBI's active shooting reports from 2014 to 2022 drastically underreport the number of times a shooter was stopped by a defensive gun use. This fact is even more glaring when you see how corporate media covers defensive gun uses. Take a look at the shooting at the mall in Greenwood, Indiana. This shooting was stopped within the first 15 seconds by 22-year-old Elijah Dickin. In the wake of the shooting, the Washington Post was quick to draw upon those same FBI statistics, claiming that a mass shooter being stopped by an armed civilian was rare. Here's an example from CNN.
And then, police say less than 2 minutes after the shooting began, the attacker was killed by a, quote, good Samaritan with a lawfully carried gun.
The shooter fired several rounds, striking the suspect. The suspect attempted to retreat back into the restroom and fail.
We're very thankful for a young 22-year-old man who stopped this violent act.
And that's relatively rare.
So why would they report that, when the data clearly shows otherwise? Another article by the New York Times claimed that there was no lasting solution to gun violence in the wake of the shooting. How can that be when the solution was just shown to the public? It's clear that there's an agenda at work here, and the control of information is just another tool in the toolbox of the billionaire-funded anti-gun lobby. We know that they'll be using any means necessary to implement their ideology. Just take this quote from Attorney General Eric Holder when he was the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. What we need to do is change the way in which people think about guns, especially young people, and make it something that's not cool, that it's not acceptable. In the way in which we change our attitudes about cigarettes, we have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it on a Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way. Wow, they're just resorting to brainwashing at this point. And if you need even more evidence, just take a look at the top donor to the anti-gun lobby, Michael Bloomberg, someone who has become synonymous with the phrase gun control. Bloomberg banned large sodas during his time as mayor in New York because he felt that people shouldn't be drinking them. He uses the same philosophy about guns. He's using his wealth to fund every possible avenue that could lead to gun control. His billions serve as funding for many different organizations, politicians, and activists, all with the same goal: stripping law-abiding Americans of their Second Amendment right. In contrast, organizations like GOA are completely funded by the support of our members. And while we may not have a funding of a billionaire donor like Michael Bloomberg, the grassroots support of our members is what these people fear the most. Real political power in our system is in the hands of voters. This is why organizations like GOA are the bane of billionaires' existence. They simply cannot buy a grassroots movement. This is also why GOA needs your help. If you're not a member, we strongly encourage you to join up. We're expecting 2024 to be full of fights for your Second Amendment right, and we'll need your help to put the pressure on Congress to defend it. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share to help us defeat YouTube's algorithm. I'll see you guys next time.